Welcome to Thieves' Cant, a tabletop gaming podcast with your hosts, Jeremy Shane and Chris White.
Welcome in and welcome back. It is Thieves' Cant, Thursday, February 5th. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
Thanks for listening, as always, and following and subscribing at Thieves' Cant Cast, and, of course, leaving that 5-star review. Thank you very much. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you today?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
We'll see if that changes.
It might.
Yeah.
Might change your whole day, your whole outlook.
Change my entire perspective.
That's
Today,
right.
It's a little back booth banter discussion today. You told me you want to talk exploration.
Yeah, I do. What really inspired this was I was watching YouTube, a video by a channel called Tinker's Tavern.
Okay.
And he was talking about exploration. And this guy is, it's a good channel. He's focused almost exclusively on the OSR stuff. Not a big fan of modern D&D or a lot of those games.
Okay.
So that's his focus. And he was sort of talking about how, exploration has really lost its edge. It's not really the focus that it was in older versions of a lot of these tabletop games. And we've kind of alluded to some of that. We were mentioning the Crows game that's coming out from MCDM.
Yeah.
It really reminded me a lot of that conversation. In the focus that's sort of been lost in exploration and really just in general, like what are we doing in this dungeon? What's going on here? And what's the feeling? What's the vibe? Because I think we have over time, like that, frog that's getting the temperature raised. I don't know, whatever that story is, you raise the temperature a little, the frog doesn't jump out because he's an idiot. Okay. It's like that kind of idea, right? Like these things have changed slowly over time and
we haven't really noticed.
It's not apparent, right? Exactly. Okay. We haven't really noticed. So we didn't notice we were cooking, but we're cooking and cooking in a bad way, like that. So yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about it and some of the ideas that are there and maybe some ideas that could be incorporated in any game, I think, to really change how we regard exploration.
Okay. Let me ask, and so maybe this is a point you're going to get to, but is this boiling down to the idea of like player skill versus character skill? Is that where this discussion is housed?
I think that's a part of it.
Okay.
It certainly is. And that's because a lot of the play in the game has been replaced with die rolls and like D20 I'm going to pick on D&D a lot today because I've had a few observations that I think are sort of key that I think they've gone in a strange direction as far as a lot of these rules go. So yeah, when you can replace players trying to solve a puzzle, which is gameplay, with a D20 roll with modifiers for an investigation check, I think maybe you've lost something. Like something that's key to what makes these games fun, right? I mean, making an investigation check, it's cool when you roll high, right? But there was no gameplay in it. Like there's nothing there. It's just literally a check and an immediate feedback, good or bad.
How do you account for combat then?
Right. Sure. That's part of it. I'm not really talking about combat today.
Right.
So not to dismiss that.
But I think it's impossible to acknowledge one tier of gameplay that uses the core mechanic of the game and give it a pass, while the other tiers that also use that same mechanic are somehow cheapened because of that.
Right. But I don't know how to think my way through swinging a sword. Right. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely.
When we're investigating a doorway for traps, right? What are we doing? Like, am I running my hand along a seam? Am I, do I see any discoloration that might tip me off? All those clues. There's so much gameplay within that, opposed to a check versus I'm swinging my sword now. I'm going to, you could get more in depth. And that, okay, I'm going to swing and I'm going to feign to the left, but I'm going to swing to the right. I don't, obviously there's a cutoff in all of this, right? You can go too far, too extreme in any of it.
And I think that the person who would be a proponent of the die rolling might say, well, I've never been in a dungeon, just like I've also never been in a combat. So I don't know the sorts of things that I should be looking for. And that's what the die roll is there to tell me.
Yeah, it's really just a question. I'm not proposing, hey, here's a system to use in the game. I'm just saying what I think we've lost and what we may want to consider ways to bring it back, right? So I don't know that I have the smoking gun here that's the perfect solution. Just the idea of what's different, right? So another aspect of this is resources, right? I mean, when you think about if you're playing in a game like D&D, what are your resources? I think in almost any game, hit points are a resource.
Sure.
Whether you regard them as physical damage or
they're more abstract than that.
Morale is dropping or, whatever that may be. They are a resource, certainly. You think the number of spells you have, possibly expendable items that you have, right? But I mean, really the focus is hit points and how many times can I use a given ability a day? And what I was thinking about earlier was contrasting just like D&D, modern D&D, versus Draw Steel. In both games, I have limited resources that I'm trying to balance, right? The difference is in D&D, almost everything that I do has its own pool of limited resources. Whereas in Draw Steel, every character has a specific resource that they're drawing from, right?
Unified.
It's more unified, right? But it's also like there's more player agency in that.
Okay.
So what I find in D&D, and I think most people do as well, when we're in a tough combat, I'm exhausting almost every resource I have. And so what do I want to do? Oh, I want to find a corner and take a short rest, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, this is the truth. It's so bad that like one of the DMs that I play with has literally given characters an ability that they can choose. And it was sort of you're all going to choose this or else, where basically you could turn a short rest into like 15 minutes and a long rest into like an hour. So many times, you could still only use it once per 24-hour period or whatever. Basically, it's just because these combats are really difficult. Every resource is being exhausted in 30 seconds of combat.
Right.
And now it's like we need to go take a nap. It doesn't feel heroic, right?
Yeah.
And of course, games like Draw Steel are trying to draw upon that. But the idea is D&D is sort of has that baked into it with the way that resources are allocated, the way those resources are spent, and the rewards given on a short or long rest. I mean, there are classes that basically get their whole kit back on a short rest. So the idea of running from one encounter to another is kind of dumb because it's like, guys, we could take an hour and like the sorcerer's back at full strength or the warlock's back at full strength or whatever. Right. So, so that, I think that's part of just the overall mechanics that have changed in that there's a sense in the older games, and I think the OSR has really tried to capture it, this idea of limited resources that you can't get back. So like with Shadow Dark, the torch, right? Light is so much a part of that. But there's other things you can do like time, right? Time is an incredibly valuable resource. Light is something they use as a valuable resource. And again, a lot of this I'm taking from Tinker's Tavern, right? Because he sort of inspired me. And there again, go watch his video on exploration. It's great. And there's a lot of those points that I'm trying to draw from here because a lot of these modern games, it feels like you're basically going from encounter to encounter. You're on the tracks. You're on the roller coaster, right? And so it's like, oh, what did we encounter in this room? Read the description, have the encounter, the combat's done, get the loot. Next room. Okay, we wait. The hallway is basically just the rails, right? To get us to the next encounter. And so, but that idea that, hey, we really have to move fast, right? Because we don't have much time. The torches are running out. Whatever's happening, maybe something is going to transpire after a certain amount of time. There's a sense of urgency. The king's been poisoned. He's dying. Whatever it is, like, time is something that ramps up those problems, because what you want is for decisions to be hard, right? And if we're going from room to room, it's like, okay, room's clear, lock the door, set up the rotation of who's going to guard the door, rest. Okay, next room, we go to that. It's just one series of encounters to another. I think we missed the whole thing. Here's the deal. I am like the laziest gamer ever, right? I mean, like,
Same, yeah.
Like, I know people are going to think I'm crazy. Sometimes I'm like, really? A magic item that changed my stats? Like, I'm going to have to change all these on my sheet, and like put the thing in. And you know me, I'm Mr. Digital, so
Right.
This is going to be a pain. I got to figure out how to do this. So like sometimes I'm like, oh, magic items. I'm like the only guy like that. But really, like treasure, I think there's a reason, if you go back to those old games, that treasure was the pathway to experience, that it was the motivator, right? It was a lot of that. Get in, get that treasure, get out, right? Like, because this is a bad place. You don't want to be here long. And you have to decide, what if you get 3 rooms into the dungeon and it's like, we're taking way too long. We know that there's an enemy force coming, or we know that, our light's going to run out soon, or we know that we're out of spells or whatever. We need to get out of here. Sometimes, it just, instead of being on rails and just, we need to go through encounter by encounter till we get to the boss encounter, and then we defeat it and we won the dungeon, right? Sometimes It's just, we're going an awful place and we're going to have to make decisions on whether it's worth it to push through or to stop and get out of here. Because there are times when that's the only way you're going to make it. And so you have to have, the threat of death has to be very real, obviously, or there's going to be no tension in the game. But beyond that, having resources, maybe we're running out of food. Maybe we're running out of water. Maybe we're, again, the light's about to go out. There's no light in this dungeon. One thing I've really been thinking about in games like D&D even is, hey, if there's no light at all, you can forget low light vision. All those, it's gone, right? If there's no light at all to pull upon, you don't have it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because I think the darkness is a powerful tool. All of a sudden when you're stumbling around in the dark and you can hear something moving, what is it? Don't know. Can't see it. That's scary. Can I figure out where the door was we came in? Yeah, I'm running at it, right? What would you do in a haunted house, right? I know what we'd do. We'd run in circles and scream like small children. So I just think some of those old ideas have a real purpose, and I think it was there for a reason, and I think it changes the flavor of the game so much. And I've always been a D&D fan through different iterations. Of course, we started playing around the time of 2nd edition D&D. So even then, I don't think we got the full effect of what the older games were like. But I think there is a reason why people are going back to those older games. And I think it's because they're much harder, they're much harsher, they're much more brutal. Survival is not nearly as guaranteed. But at the same time, if you're smart, there's a lot of, you're playing a game. It's a game you can lose, but you're really playing a game. You're not just basically micromanaging a series of charts.
So do you think that the breadth of character options that seems to be the focus of modern D&D and games of the like, my abilities, my powers, so I get to level up and now I get to add this rider onto this, that ultimately is the great detractor from those earlier modes of play?
Well, I hate to say that because that's an aspect of the game I really like.
Exactly.
I love looking at all those abilities and mixing and matching and what if I took a dip in this, or a different class, or, what's the advantage of this subclass? But, through all those things, I think maybe we've lost some of the focus on what made exploration fun? Why is it fun to go explore that cave? You know, I mean, you think about it in real life terms. Like, what is the appeal? Why do we think that going into this hole in the earth that's full of bad things is fun? And we have to ask ourselves that. And I'm certainly not saying that a game like D&D can't be fun. It can. You know, even a game like Draw Steel. You know, we've had a blast playing those games over the years. But I just wonder if it's worth it to step back and say, what is it about going in a place like this that's fun? And are the mechanics that we're using the best way to experience that?
If you've got thoughts on exploration in RPGs, we would love to hear them. You can email thievescantcast@gmail.com. Drop a note in the comments below as well. Let us know what you think. Chris, one more show this week. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got a new segment.
Really?
Stealing stories.
Stealing stories.
You know, being thieves and all.
Right. So when we steal things, do we talk like this?
You are free to.
The entire episode, I'm going to talk like this.
We will see you on Friday for Thieves Can't. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
Solo.
Thank you for listening to Thieves Can't. Email thievescantcast@gmail.com.